The Sting of Mortality, Chapter 2, Dragon in the Well. Deep in the cold, dark well, Lohita struggled to keep her head above water. Despite her desperate cries, Clove refused to help her. She tried to call out to the villagers, but the only answer she got from them were the sounds of hammers and nails resonating over the angry screams and curses. Hot tears of panic and despair ran down her cold cheeks as she watched the wooden planks being set down one by one until they blotted out the stars. "Damn you! Damn you, Clove, for all eternity!" she shouted. Lohita stubbornly refused to let go of the iron staff. She refused to let it go, and she refused to die. Even as she heard the muffled sounds of dirt and rocks being thrown down over the wooden planks to bury her in the watery grave. She continued to frantically scrape at the smooth, wet stone wall, ripping her fingernails and blooding her fingertips until she found a small hole big enough to wedge the narrow end of the iron staff. For what seemed like eternity, Lohita clung onto the metal rod, gasping for breath as she shivered in the cold water. Time passed. It seemed like weeks, but it was impossible to know how long without anything to aid her. Every torturous hour, she could feel herself growing weaker and weaker. The light in her once determined, angry, vengeful, bright, sapphire blue eyes had faded. Her once fair, ivory white skin had turned sickly, clammy white. She began to wonder what would fail first, her will to hold on, or if her body would succumb to the cold. Her breath billowed out from chattering teeth and trembling lips into a frigid, cold, white mist. When finally she heard the sound of a shovel scraping against the wooden planks, Lohita lifted her head. Her heart quickened with hope and expectation. In the cold well, the sound of wooden boards being pried away echoed against the stone walls, allowing the starlight to stream down into the darkness. She let out a gasp and reached out toward the dark figures that loomed above. But as much as Lohita wanted to call out, she was too weak to speak. All she could muster were painful, frantic gasps from her hoarse, aching throat. Just as she feared that they could not see her in the gloom, a rope was dropped down and splashed into the water beside her. As a precaution, before she slid her foot into the loop and grabbed hold, she left the staff lodged inside the wall. The thick cord tightened, and she was quickly hauled back up to the surface. Just as she was about to express her gratitude, she came face to face with a dozen tall figures dressed in black hooded robes that hid their faces and were rank with the smell of blood. Lohita staggered backward, only to be grabbed from behind. The dragoness screamed in panic as pale, smooth hands gripped her by her throat and tightly wrapped around her waist. She is a bit wet, but she still has some fight left in her, my lord Moonthral, hissed a cruel, feminine voice from behind her. Nilhita cursed and tried to get away, but she was too weak, and there was nothing she could do. Nilhita trembled in fear as the black cloaked figures stepped aside, revealing the tall, pale-faced man dressed in long, black, flowing silk garments. A silver ringlet rested above his head, over his slicked back, raven hair. His steps didn't make a sound as he slowly made his way over to the well. The bright moon illuminated his pale features. His eyes were pitch black, orbs that held no warmth. His lips were thin and pale, and his jaw long and narrow, matching his high cheekbones and pointed nostrils. "Where is Alderness staff?" Moonthral demanded. I don't know, she said quickly, and then stiffened as she felt Crescenta's cold fingers pull back the wet black strands of hair, and then the vampire's cold lips brush against her throat. "You're lying," cooed the woman from behind her. "I can smell it. I can feel your heart pulsing with dread." She laughed as she slowly traced her hand upward and grabbed the silver chain and pulled away the glowing red armlet from her tunic and grinned wickedly. "This is pretty," she remarked. Before Lohita could protest, she felt a cold, sharp pain as the silver chain snapped and broke away from her neck as it was stripped away from her. Lohita was about to shout when she turned to see Crescenta's glistening white fangs protruding from her wicked, pallor-faced grin, and quickly fell silent as she could see that her protest would only bring her more suffering. "Where is the staff?" repeated Moonthral. Lohita trembled in fear as hot tears began running down her face. The dragon has it. He captured me and threw me in the well when I refused to help him," she said quickly through muffled sobs. She knew what they were. They were vampires, and she knew all too well what they were capable of. The vampiress behind her grinned evilly as she smelled the omelet and looked back to her master. "The scent is old, but—" She paused and licked it, and her jet black orbs sparkled with glee. "Dragon's blood, indeed," she confirmed and tossed the omelet to her vampire lord. Moonthral put the omelet to his nostrils and frowned as he stooped down and touched the earth. "The scent is muddled," he hissed angrily. Crescenta, the vampiress, gently pulled the long wet strands of hair away from her neckline while her master studied her closer. Loida took in a sharp breath as she felt the woman's ice-cold fingers gliding up and down her throat. "Yes, because the dragoness is right here," she laughed. Lolita's sky blue eyes widened in panic, and she quickly tried to pull away. But the vampiress only laughed and held her tighter. Clever, clever, but you are a little child to me. Do you think I wouldn't notice the difference between the taste of a pyro and of a dragon? She asked as she pulled a thin, curved dagger and began tracing teasingly over her soft, wet skin. Crescenta grinned wolfishly, and her fingers tightened around the small blade with anticipation. May I? She asked, but Moonthral made a single motion with his hand, denying the request. She belongs to me, he declared. Crescenta's grin twisted into an angry scowl, and she vehemently threw Lolita to the ground. Tears fell down Lolita's face as she began to weep uncontrollably and looked toward Moonthral for mercy. Please, please don't kill me, she begged. I know the pyro. He killed my master. She tried to reason. Moonthraw's pitch black eyes studied the dragoness carefully as he teasingly twirled the glowing red amulet in front of her. I am your master now, he hissed coldly. Lolita swallowed hard as she lay huddled, trembling in fear on the ground. He tricked me, and I only lied because I was afraid, she gasped wretchedly. Did he? He asked as Lolita cowered on the ground. He said he would give me the staff for the armlet. He lied and threw me in the well, she sobbed. Did he trick you? He asked her. But his voice was cold, calloused, and mocking as he began etching a ring of strange runes into the back of the silver base of the amulet with his long, pointed, black fingernails. Lolita shuddered as the vampire lord knelt in front of her. Look at me, he commanded sternly. A new wave of fresh tears began to flow down her face, for she was too afraid to look up into the vampire's terrible, pitch-black eyes. Through blurred vision she saw the glowing red amulet dangling out in front of her. Take it, the vampire commanded. Please don't hurt me, she pleaded. Take it, the vampire repeated, but this time in a much softer voice. Lolita hesitantly raised her head and looked up at the vampire lord's flawless, immortal face, and his intensely calm, ebony black eyes. Take it, he said for the third time. The dragoness swallowed hard. Her hands trembled as she reached up to clasp hold of the warm silver chain. But the second she did this, the chain shimmered and came to life. Lolita screamed in panic and immediately tried to pull away, but the chain sprang up round her hand, binding her wrists tightly together like a living silver serpent. Moonthraw's eyes widened in wonder and glanced over toward Crescenta, who also was staring slack-jawed in dismay. A malevolent grin flared across the vampire lord's face. Alderneth was a fool. He had more than enough magic to saturate the staff, he chuckled. Crescenta smiled and quickly seized Lolita by her long black hair and forced her up onto her knees. Then we won't be needing her, she exclaimed excitedly. Lohita shrieked in panic, but the very moment the vampire's blade touched her throat, she felt a blast of wind rush by her face, followed by a loud, deafening sound like that of a thunder echoing above her. The next thing she saw was Moonthroll's swirling blue cowl fluttering by her face, and she turned in shock to see Crescenta lying on the ground several feet away, staring up in surprise and fear, holding her face where she had been slapped. "She belongs to me," he declared sternly. The look of pure, pulsating hatred in the vampiress's cold, inky black eyes terrified her. Lohita quickly cowered away, but when she attempted to huddle beneath the fringes of her master's cowl, she received a sharp kick from the heel of his boot, casting her out from beneath his shadow, and turned toward the forest where Loclove had run to. "Take her. The day comes quickly. We don't have time to waste," Moonthral hissed impatiently. Before Lohita could get up, Crescenta came from behind the dragoness and grabbed a fistful of her hair and forced her to her feet. Lohita shrieked, "Master, please, she's hurting me," she whimpered. "Silence her," Moonthral commanded impatiently, and paused for a moment, turning his head toward the direction Loclove had run to. "I smelled blood," he declared. Crescenta smirked and forcefully crammed a dirty cloth rag into Lohita's mouth. "Yes, I smell it too," she exclaimed excitedly. "But it's far off," she added. "Show our new pet into the ship. We have some ground to cover if we want to obtain the staff," he instructed. Coming up next, Chapter 3, Blood Moon. If you want to read along or support this channel, you can find this book on Amazon as well as Kindle. I also have other books coming and a few pilot chapters that could be interesting and I would like to try out. If you like this book so far, the Dragon Scourge Book 1 is also out and also available if you want to listen to it for free. And if you like it and want to support the channel, it is available on Amazon and Kindle. But this is my free gift to you, the world. I'm just a one-man band. I know the audio is a bit rough, but this is rock and roll. This is me running around banging pots and pans. This is not meant to be classical music by any stretch of the imagination, but I am trying to get better, and I think it's been improved since the last book, and I might redo the last book, and but we'll see. I got a lot of things I want to work on, and yeah, because I'm doing all the illustrating, I'm doing all the audio, I'm doing all the writing, but it's fun, and I hope you're having fun, and that's what we're here for. And we can't cure the coronavirus, but maybe I can help out some cabin fever, and or make a drive a little less monotonous. But everyone does what they can. All right, have a wonderful day.